Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I'm super excited about my guest today. I hardly ever get a chance to interview males on my show because sometimes they just don't want to talk, and which is fine. But I'm super excited about my guest today. I got to meet him in person in March and didn't really know his story. He's very humble man. Didn't really get to know his story and didn't really know until I met him on the first day and didn't really know his story until I got put on stage. And I was like, wow, this guy has so much to share. And it's just such an inspiration. So our guest today is Juan Catalan. He is a speaker, an author, and an entrepreneur whose life is a powerful testament to resilience, redemption, and faith. He was falsely accused of a murder he didn't commit. He spent months in jail facing the death penalty until a Los Angeles Dodgers game and a rare stadium footage helped prove his innocence. After his release, he built his life up from the ground up. He returned to school, he earned his GED, and recently graduated with a bachelor's degree in business management. He now shares his journey on stages, podcasts, and media platforms, inspiring others to push through the pain, rebuild from rock bottom, and never stop fighting for the truth. His upcoming book, Played, is a raw and powerful memoir about perseverance, purpose, and how faith and determination saved his life. He was on a documentary for Netflix called Long Shot, and so also encourage you all to check that out and then order the book. But thank you so much, Juan, for being my guest today.
Thank you, Angelina, for the invite. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
When I heard your story, like when we first met, you were just like, yeah, I'm Juan. And we just kind of had a little bit of conversation and I just didn't know your story all the way. And the more that I read and then also, heard you speak at Secret Knock. And then I also watched the documentary. I mean, what a thing that you went through. So just a powerful thing. And just to be falsely accused, when people call us, say that we did something. I remember a little kid getting told, "Oh, you stole my eraser," or stole something like that, and you're so frustrated. But the frustration that you had was nothing compared to. I mean, what was that like? And before we actually go into that, just kind of take us to the beginning of what your life was like
um before this all happened? Like you were working in a machine shop. Like just tell us how your life was and then how it transformed from that day.
Yeah, so before this life-altering event is which what it was, it changed my life completely, transformed it. I was just a young kid and I had two beautiful young daughters, 4 years old and 6 years old. And I really was just existing. I didn't I didn't have any goals. I didn't, I was just getting by. My dad started a business when he way back when with his brother, and we just kind of grew up in that in the machine shop. And from a young age, my dad would make us go to work. At high school, I was kind of upset about that because all our friends, my brothers and my friends, they would go and play after school or whatever in summer, and we had to go to work. So, I was mad about that. But, little did I know that, my dad was trying to make us into men, which I didn't know back then. So I was just basically existing. I said no goals, and then, one day, without even doing anything, I getting dropped off at work, and this car that had no type of symbols of being law enforcement or anything. They pulled us over a very bad way. I thought that it was somebody that maybe that wanted to rob us or something. So I had my daughter, my daughter's mom in the car. So I got out to see who it was, and as soon as I got out, I had a gun like right in my face. So I thought I was dead because, the guy, it was a white guy, he looked like a biker. There was like, again, no signs of law enforcement. Um, but within a matter of seconds, he yelled at me to get down, and I was surrounded by officers in like a SWAT style takedown. And, I just couldn't, it was just like a bad dream. And I got taken in. I was questioning and kept saying what was going on, what was going on. And they wouldn't tell me. It wasn't until 6 hours later I found out that they were arresting me for what they said. They were falsely accusing me of killing a poor 16-year-old girl, which I blew, turned my head upside, turned my life upside down. And I was just trying to make sense of it. And yeah, I was in jail, sitting in a jail cell for about 6 months, looking at a potential death penalty sentence until, by the grace of God, so many things like a jigsaw puzzle had to come together to prove my innocence.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, just to be accused of that, and then the way that you were approached and all the things, and then to be sitting there for 6 hours, not even knowing what happened, and here you are, your children are probably like, what's going on? That's one of their, memories as a child, which, just what a very traumatic experience. And luckily, I mean, and the whole thing about it is you weren't even supposed to be at that Dodgers game, right? You had gotten some tickets last minute.
Yes, the day of the game. I remember I was driving, and I got received a phone call, and it was the person that we deal with, one of our best customers, and he would always get tickets from other vendors, and to try to gain favor with him. So he called me up that morning. He's like, hey, I have tickets to the Dodgers versus Braves. And at that time, Atlanta was like a powerhouse team. The Dodgers weren't so good. And I was like, I'm a sports geek, so I was like, wow, I actually had bought tickets for this was I got tickets Monday morning for that game. I had bought tickets the week prior for Wednesday's game because that was like the star matchup between pitchers. But this Monday morning, I get this phone call if I wanted tickets. I'm like, it's a no-brainer. So I received four tickets, and I took my daughter Melissa, who was 6 years old. She's the oldest, and my cousin Miguel, who's also I kind of grew up with him like a brother. So we love sports the same way. And then my good friend Ruben, who's also a sports fan. So we all four went down to Dodger Stadium and took in this game that I've been to plenty of games, but this one was different because right in our section where we were sitting, I had never seen anyone film anything at a game because, you're there to watch the game, not to see something else. And this particular game, my daughter wanted some candy and popcorn from like during the middle of the game. We went. When we came back, right on our aisle, there was cameras blocking our way to walk down to our seats. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. Like in my mind, I was thinking, let me get in front of the camera just to, thinking that it was cool. Never did I ever imagine that, it would be a crucial piece to prove my innocence. And it's just an unbelievable. I know it wasn't a coincidence, but amazing that the way that things had to line up for me.
I think and I think that, if I remember, the game was like in May that you went to, but you didn't even get, when you got arrested, it wasn't even till like what, August or something like
Yeah,
that?
exactly. It was exactly 3 months after that game. I went to the game May 12th and I got arrested August 12th.
Wow.
Exactly 3 months to that game. Yeah.
And then, so you're here trying to remember what's happened, where was I at, all of these things going through, and the way that you were, you were taking in, you didn't have really ways to, communicate much with your family, and so that was really hard trying to piece everything together. It was just like your life just got taken away from you at like an instance. And one of the things I thought was really well, not encouraging, but like of all the things that went into place is that when because they were filming that TV show, you were able to get just from that one clip where they allowed you, which they weren't allowing you, and then they allowed you to go ahead and go through and sit down. So that was a little bit of a clip. But the other part of it was that the lawyer, who was the prosecutor, I mean, had never lost a case.
Yes, that was probably one of the scariest reasons that, I was fearful of, either going to death row or, my life ending there because, to go up against this prosecutor who only does like hardcore like gang cases and she has put away so many people for the rest of their lives and here we are, here I am, and just I just the amount of stress and the fear that it was to go up into it, it was like I tell people about it and people that don't know me that I don't sometimes like I'll talk about it like if I feel very comfortable with the person I'll maybe bring it up but usually I don't and it's just not what I mean, it's just I don't talk about it but people have found out about it after on their own and they're like, hey, why didn't you ever tell me that you went through that? I would have never imagined. And I'm just I know it's like it's almost like a movie. I mean, they made a documentary out of it but it was just incredible to having I had the best lawyer in the world and I Todd Melnick who just I felt like it was just him and I against the world and that's what it felt like because the whole world, I was on the news, my family saw me, neighbors saw me, they were calling my mom saying, hey, did Juan really do this? And I'm like, that hurt somewhat because I'm like people that have known me my entire life and they were asking about my character and stuff like that but regardless I just thank God that I was able to clear my name and prove my innocence and you know gain my freedom back.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that just, to be falsely accused and then people to call. And I mean, your poor mom, what she went through. And
Mhm.
I think if I remember right, your mom, you talk to your mom almost every day, right?
Yeah,
During this time.
I try to because uh in jail there's a lot of racial tensions and fights and arguments. So when the inmates are misbehaving or fighting, they shut down the lines. The sheriff's department that run the place, they'll just cut the lines and no one can call anywhere. So whenever I had the chance to, I would call my mom, and that was because she seemed to me she seemed to be the only one that was able to bring me some calm. You know, when I talked to my kids, I also forgot about what was going on for the 5-10 minutes that I got to speak to them. But my mom was the one that actually gave me the reassurance and the calm that that God wouldn't allow this injustice to prevail. And she has a gift when it comes to that. So I just thank God that we were able to again beat this.
Yeah, what a thing. And so all the things that you went through, and like we won't go too deep into it because the documentary they can watch and get all the information. But what I wanted to know, what the documentary didn't show, was like what was going through your mind every day. Like, how did you keep going? I mean, talking to your mom, I'm sure was helpful, but how did you just keep your head like, and then to so that every single day you just felt like it was gonna work out for you, or did you ever have any doubt?
Oh yeah, no, the doubt was it was just like the dark cloud here that was just following me everywhere I went. So what I did was I just chose not to indulge in those thoughts, the negative ones, because I would have probably lost my sanity. And people, inmates that I became friends with in there that I trusted, they would tell me like, "Hey, wait a minute, you look too calm." And my answer was like, well, I'm innocent. But even though I was already caught up in that spider web of courts and all that. And a detective later, another side interview I made, they asked him a question, something like, how hard is it to get out of those things? And he was saying that once you're in that spider web, it's like almost impossible to get out. And given those circumstances and the allegations that they were accusing me of, which is like impossible, because cases like that, if you're a suspect, you had something to do with it, you know what I mean? So it wasn't by coincidence and all that. But what I did was I just tried to keep myself busy, and that was through exercise and or reading. And in there you can go to two places, to church and to school, and I did both. So school to take my mind off of things and try to gain some type of normal, sense of the world. And but and church, because I would go to church to pray. And I, as a kid growing up, my parents used to take us, we grew up Catholic, so on Sunday mornings we knew we had to go to church. So that made me also take my mind off of things. But it was school that something clicked inside of me, because I had never graduated high school. So, it was in there that I'm looking at a potential life sentence that my life is playing before me, like all the scenes. And I was just thinking like, what have I been doing with my life? Like, I just, it clicked in there that I had not really done anything. And, sadly, I hadn't paid attention to my education, which, I mean, I don't blame my parents. My dad only went to fifth grade. My mom only went to second grade. And my dad and mom would tell us, hey, you guys got to do well in school. But they didn't, how can you say, since English wasn't their first language, they couldn't help us with our homework. So it wasn't like, like I said, I don't blame them, but it was just almost like, it to me, it wasn't important. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Education is the key to success. And I promised myself in there and God that if I had a second chance, that I would come out and then go get my GED and see where else I would go further if I could.
So yeah, and look at you did. You not only did you get your GED, you now have your bachelor's, and so I think that that's amazing.
Thank
You were
you.
able to accomplish that, and I love that you accomplished. When you got your bachelor's, your daughter and you graduated the same day, correct?
Yes, that's another like amazing accomplishment for her, and as well as myself. But yeah, so I never graduated high school. I came out, studied for about 9 months, went to go take the GED test. I got it, and then I walked over to Pierce College. I, had to take an assessment test, and I started literally from the bottom. My English was one level above ESL. and I started like at one of like the basic, like it was like high school algebra, I think. And, sure enough, little by little, I finally achieved my associate's degree in the general education. And then I transferred to CSUN. And 3 months ago, I graduated on stage with my daughter, who I was with at the Dodger game, which it still blows my mind. Again, it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm living a movie because of, the valleys, the highs and the lows. And it's just, life is just, it's an amazing journey. And, I think that we have to, a lot of the times life can beat us up and, throw us curveballs and, stuff like that. But, you just have to keep going. You have to persevere. I tell people I'm not special. I just refuse to quit. So, you know,
I love that. And I love that you say that because, you know, uh, there's so many times you hear people that are just stuck in this state of, well, this happened to me and this happened, and so like my life is over or whatever. But you choose to, like, you really thought about you pushed out the negative thoughts while you were, in jail. And then you kind of just made yourself goals like, hey, God, if this, I get out of this because, I'm innocent, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you not only you didn't make false promises and you
yes,
kept to what you said you were going to do. And I think that's important. A lot of times people say, well, when I get more money, I'm going to do this, or when I do this or get this and I get at this level, but you didn't do it that way. You're like, it doesn't matter. I set up a goal that I want to do for myself. It doesn't matter my money. It doesn't matter any of those things. Because a lot of times people, like what you said, like when you start working in high school and you're making decent living and stuff, you're like, oh, I don't need education. But you went and like, no, I'm going to do this for myself because it can prove that I'm a finisher. I can finish what I started.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%.
Does your dad still do machine shop work, and do you still do machine shop work? Just curious.
My dad is retired, but he comes in and helps me, which I love, to just keep his mind busy. And I've, taken over the business since. It's just, business is not easy. If,
Mhm.
anybody out there is a business owner, it's just, it's like everything else. It just requires that you show up and, you put in the work, your dedication, and just, evolve with the times, with technology and, everything. Like, we use equipment like high precision, technology, and, you have to keep up with the times. And, I've tried to do that. And, you know, I that was another reason that I wanted to go to school, because, kind of at an early age, my dad was, here. He gave us the business to my brother and I, and we didn't know anything. We're like, well, what are we supposed to do? They're like, well, run a business. So I basically, like, I tell people I did it reverse. I ran a business and then I went to school, but it all works together, and it just makes you that much better.
I love that. I love that. And I think that, like you said, machine work, I used to oversee a machine shop when I worked at the for the Marine Corps. And the machine shop's a very, the precision has to be right. You have to be
Oh
very
my
careful.
gosh.
It's
Yes.
it's a lot of methodical things and paying attention to detail.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's super. I've been doing it for about 20 years now, and I'm still learning because of the technology, the software, the tooling comes different, materials that we've never seen. It's just, some you could cut faster, some you got to go slower, some can, run you 100 pieces with this tooling, other you can only run like 10. So it's all, knowledge that you acquire over, experience is what it is.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, I get excited when I talk to people about that. I mean, I get excited about a lot of things, but
Mhm.
but with all the things, your book that you have coming out, and it talks about, your perseverance and stuff. And so what is it? What is it? Is it like forget from your beginning of life till now? Or walk us through what we can find in your book.
Yeah, so Played is basically my life story. It's a memoir, and it starts off with my childhood, which wasn't the best. And it's kind of hard to explain, because people will be like, well, you had both your parents, you had a house and what do you mean you had a rough life? But, I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I
Mhm.
talk about in early on in the book, and that is like so spot on. And it's just, the levels that you need to just, move up the ladder. And some of those bottom things I never received. And it's, again, I don't blame, I hate excuses. And I tell my kids that zero excuses. I don't want to hear excuses. And, it's not, I heard somebody talking on a video and they said that it's not our fault who our parents are and what environment you're born in, but it is your responsibility where you end up.
Mhm.
So that and that is easier said than done because I'm like I remember as a kid in elementary, I always asked questions like when we talked about the stars and the moons and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute, how are we like just navigating into space? Stuff would scare me because I would always ask questions on why is this and why is that. And it's just a lot of self-study and a lot of self-reflection that I've done over my life because my mom dealt with like crippling anxiety. I talk about all this in the book, and it's just, my mom talking about the power of the mind. My mom, for 2 years, swore she was paralyzed, even though every medical test that she took was negative. But, in here, she was paralyzed because my mom had trauma as a kid that she really doesn't know exactly what it was, but she knows it was there. And it makes me sad to think about it because my mom, she has troubles. She cannot fly. Elevators are a problem, cars and all this stuff. So I saw this with my brothers and sisters growing up, but didn't know it would affect me later on. And throw in this murder case, and my life is just like spinning at a million miles an hour. So it's just it's perseverance, and I talk about resilience in the book. And it's this book, I didn't see like a future as a kid. When I had my daughters, that gave me something to live for. But this book is for everyone who's ever been counted out, or just to every kid that thought that he couldn't do anything. This book is for them to inspire and motivate. And if I can inspire and motivate one person with what I've gone through in my story, then it's all well worth it, I believe.
I love that. And I love all the things that you shared, about your mom and about all the things that and sometimes we deal with things in life and people think, well, maybe your life wasn't hard. I love how you said that even though you had two parents, you had all these things, but there's stuff that we still go through, the needs that we still have, or maybe just to feel loved or wanted, or that type of affection that maybe, I'm not saying that that was your case, but those are just some of the examples. And um I know that for a long time my parents divorced when we were young, but I remember the the things that we had went through as a family. And even so, for like me and my kids, when I was raising my kids, I'm like, I'm going to stay with my husband because I want a two-parent household. But there
Yeah.
were still things that we had to go through, and life gets hard sometimes. And so I love that you share that and how no matter what our circumstances were or how we went through it, we are the ones that can make the decision. We are the ones that can make the decision of the choices that we can make. Are we going to hang out with these people or hang out with those people? Are we going to wake, pursue this job or whatever we do? Like, that's our choices, and we can't blame our upbringing. We can't blame our parents. We can't blame any of that stuff. But yes, maybe things have happened. We've maybe had some trauma, um, abuse or things like that, but we're the ones that can say, okay, I can make changes into, the generations. I can make an impact. I think that's important.
100%. You said it perfectly. That was beautifully said.
Thank you. With all the things that you got, so you have this business. You're now running this machine shop business. Are you still in partners with your brother doing it?
Yeah, so my brother, long story, like I said, we can talk for days, probably, maybe even weeks. But my brother, so it was like so right before I got arrested, the reason that I got arrested according to the police was my brother was accused involved in another serious crime. and something that was not related, but the police wanted to, put together, is how the result of me being arrested, which was the farthest thing from the truth that I couldn't understand. I was even asking them to give me a lie detector test, which they refused. So it was just weird. And to me, it seemed, and my lawyer as well, that they just wanted to close this case
Hmm.
because it was making them look bad. Witness to another homicide was, murdered. The case is unresolved. It's just, it just looked very bad. And it just, it frightened me because I said, wait a minute, there's like zero evidence that I did this, and yet I'm still in jail. You know what I mean? And my case is just one of thousands. I was just, by the grace of God, I was able to prove my innocence. And, I just chose to, I refuse, like I say, refuse to make excuses. And I refuse to have a victim mentality. And I chose to not indulge in those negative feelings. But, I said, you know what, let's rise from this and, make something positive out of, let's make something positive from this negative.
And so with you, you're running the machine shop business, and then you are now coaching, you're helping other, do you do coaching to help men, or do you just go out on stages and, speak and share your story?
Yeah, so Greg was that's the first time I've done a ton of interviews on TV and stuff like that, small like mini docs for different companies, but Secret Knock was the first one that I was like up there on a stage that you saw. And I was nervous about it, but I prayed about it, and I got amazing, feedback from the audience. So a lot of people are telling me, you should be a motivational speaker. So, I just something that's never crossed my mind, but I just really believe in those things. That's just how I want to live my life. I want to, you know, work my tail off, and I just want to experience all the beautiful things that life has to offer. And I'm willing to put in the work, whatever it is to, to achieve that and, have, a happy and peaceful and prosperous life. And, if I can motivate and inspire others to do the same, then let's do it.
I love all of that. And I love how you shared, like, just to motivate people, because there's a lot of times, and like I even said at the beginning of the podcast, like I really have men who want to do this. I've had a few men, who I've heard their story. Maybe they've been through some trauma, or, they have, different things like that, or paralyzed. I've had probably 6 male, maybe 7 male guests on my podcast. Most of them don't want to go on the podcast, or especially because it's like refine and shine, and they're like, okay, shine is like, but it's like, I want them on there because it's like, no matter, we can go through life, and a lot of men don't get to hear from other men about, it's okay to, not have that victim mentality. It's okay to move forward. It's okay to, how to work through those things, how to work through that negative self-talk, how to work through when you just don't feel like you want to keep going further, how to keep, how to stay focused on the end game, I think is important. And there needs to be, like, I was even just talking to my husband the other day, who's, had his own series of things happen in life. And he said that there's hardly ever is there, like, men don't talk about things. They're told not to talk about these things, or it's, man up, don't cry, don't do this or that. And where, so it's not, and they need some type of support system. So I think that you could go out there and help and share, change the world. And like you said, even with your book, making that impact, if we can help people. And I could see so much more coming from the book, like workshops and, all of these things. And, I haven't had a chance to read it because it hasn't come out yet, but make sure everybody, you order this book. It'll come out September 16th. But there's just so much things that can come, and also being, and it's just like one particular thing that could have shattered you, how to just make it change your life for the positive, right?
Yes, absolutely. It just, I think a lot of times, we ask, why did this happen to me? Or, we choose to, I think it's human nature. I read somewhere where it's human nature to gravitate towards the negative in life. I don't know why, but it's just psychology is where I read it somewhere, where we as humans, we just gravitate towards the negative. You can post something on social media, you'll get 1,000 likes and then one dislike with a negative comment, and you dwell on that, one comment. But, I just, I, I want to tell people that just because the, I literally went through one of the worst things, injustices that a person can endure, and it almost did break me. But again, with that no quit mentality, is just whatever life comes at you. And, I know everyone has a different walk in of life, but you just gotta persevere. And, these words that I didn't even know what they meant before: perseverance, resilience, fortitude, all this was being built inside of me when I was going through the worst possible thing of my life. So if we pay attention to, I was hearing someone else speak on this, that if you think about all the negative things, something that really negative in your life, just think about what came from that after. And if you pay attention and you keep the right perspective, that was not sent to destroy you. It was sent to build you up, to strengthen you, to go on with your life.
Yes, yes. I talk about that on my that was one of my first episodes of my podcast. Is I launched it on the day that our daughter, I had miscarried at a little over 25 months. And that the day that I launched my podcast was the day that she would have had, I think it was her 22nd birthday or 22nd birthday.
Oh,
If she
wow.
had been born, all the things. And I said, I'm not going to use this as a day of hard, or like, oh, my daughter would have been 22 or whatever. I said, I'm going to launch it on this day. And I talked about how the burnout and all the things that we go through in life, where we don't deal with our feelings. But then instead of having a sad day, I make this day a happy day, that it's the launch of my podcast. And also, not only that, but it's also that I was able to have my daughter, my daughter who was born full term, and how it all worked out. Cause that's what you got to think about. Like it's that communication that me and my husband had to build, because we weren't talking that well. And there's all these little things that can happen. And I love how you say that, like, it can destroy you or it can build you. You got to listen to the lessons, and not say, why is this happening to me? Or why is, like, what is God trying to teach me? Is another way that I like to look at it. Like, what is God trying to teach me? What is the lessons I need to learn? And it's the same thing. Like, I find that it's sad though, but when people pray, they only pray because they need some people, not all people, but they only pray because they need something, but they don't pray because they just thank God for just waking up in the morning, and thank God. They only they only pray when it's a need, instead of just thanking the Lord every day. It's that same type of, you just got to change your mindset, and how you shape your day, and so many things can change from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a perfect point, in which is, sometimes, again, human nature gravitates towards the negative. And for some reason, I don't know why, it feels good to just, I don't know, kind of, I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's just kind of like, oh, woe is me, like this feeling. I don't know why, it just feels somewhat like, I don't even know what the word is, but you like want to live there. But I think when people say, well, how do I get out of this funk? Or, I feel like I'm stuck. Well, I think the first thing is get out of your head, first of all, and start practicing gratitude. And it's just like, what do you mean? I am thankful. No, but, just start making a list. That's what I started doing. Like, I started writing down 3 things a day, what I'm grateful for every single day. Try it. And it's just something as simple as, saying hello or smiling at somebody at the supermarket that, maybe they're have a sick relative or just went through a breakup. Something as simple as a smile can change somebody's day, for like, change it for the good. And that costs $0 to be a good person. And before you know it, you maybe help out a friend to move, or something that you could do for someone that you're not thinking about yourself, which I know we do a lot. And yes, you do have to take care of yourself, but when you feel stuck and you're like, I don't feel like I'm progressing, just try that and just, practice gratitude, being thankful for something, one or two or three things, and then go out and do something nice for someone else. And just look at how that makes you feel better as well.
I love that. I just actually heard something the other day about that too, is that it's not about like we can make all this money, we can do all these other things, but it's also you got to give more than you receive. You got to go out there because you can change the world by just giving. And it's not talking about like dollars or anything like that. You can just give your time. You can,
Yes.
and also like for you, you giving your time to write this book is going to help impact so many people. Just taking that time that you're giving of your time to do this book, giving of your time to do this podcast can impact people. And sometimes that's, we have to think about that. It's not, I love that you said about the gratitude, and I love how you said just be thankful because that we woke up. It's could be a simple gratitude. I also say when you talked about being stuck in, and I think it feels comfortable to people to just be stuck in that because they're fearful of taking action. They're fearful of all of these things, and where does that keeping them? That's keeping them locked in.
You know
And
what? I agree with that. I like that. Yes, nicely said. It just feels they're like afraid of failing, I think. So they're just like, I want to be here in my safe zone.
Mhm.
And that's just, something that you got to get out of that safe zone and just be uncomfortable. And I know it feels bad, but let me tell you, some of the best friends and relationships that I've made in my life after this was just talking, just being like nice person, and and just speaking to somebody if I'm at a bar or at a game or whatever it is, just to a simple conversation, and just like, wow, have friends in Boston, Chicago, and it's just it's so cool to nowadays, everyone's on their cell phone, but I try to remember, because I'm guilty of it too. So, I want to like put it away and just be like, just be present in the moment, and just,
Mhm.
take it in, because pictures are beautiful. I love pictures. I love taking pictures, but the memories are what lasts. And just I love creating memories with my kids, with my family, with my friends. It's just something that, I've had many friends tell me, man, thank you for inviting me. This was incredible. Like, I'm never going to forget this. And that gives me, that fills me up. So,
Mhm.
it's just, life is short to begin with. So that's why I tell people, what's your passion? Do you love your job, or do you wake up like, oh, I gotta go to work? No, it should be like, no, I got up and I get to go to work. There's people in the
Mhm.
hospitals that, maybe won't, make it till next week, or in an accident or something like that. So, I think just again, I after this happened to me, I get on my knees every day and I thank God for allowing me to wake up, that my parents are still alive, that my kids are healthy. I have a business. I just graduated. I feel like I have so much more to do, and it's just, you know, taking it. Don't try to rush it. Don't live in the future. Don't live in the past. Just be present and know that, you're, like you were saying, you're the writer and the author of your life. So, what do you want to change? It just starts there, really.
Yes, it starts with us, right? I love all the things, and there's so many. We could talk forever about all of these great things, and but I'd love to have you on a follow-up podcast and a few months and see, because I know you're going to have this great coaching program. I could feel so much coming from this, and
Thank you. Thank you.
we're going to have the bestseller book. Remember, everybody buy that book on September 16th. But as we wrap up, I would love to just ask. I always love to ask my guests, what is a word, a phrase, a quote, or anything, a book, anything that people can do today, something that they can do today, my listeners, to refine and shine.
Hmm. Let's see. Well, when I was in the storm, like I call it, in this just dark, storm, the darkest, times of my life, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that I couldn't let this define me. And what I did is I took all of this negativity and I let it refine me. So, and after that is where the shine came from. So I let this negativity, in other words, refine me. And now graduating from college with my daughter, with this book, I feel that shine. So I hope that to your listeners, is they can understand that.
Yes, I think I love that. Taking any storm that we've been through, or anything that we're holding on to that's maybe making us feel stuck or we can't move forward, taking all of that and saying, okay, what is it that I can do to be able to shine? Like, how can I refine my thought process or all these things that have happened to me and flip the switch and make it so that I can shine into becoming a better person.
Don't let your past define you, but take that, let it refine you, and then ultimately make you shine. So,
Yeah. I love that. I also love that you talked about too is the gratitude, practicing that gratitude and being thankful every day and all of those things. So I think that you gave my audience just so many helpful tips, and just to show, all the things that you going through the storm, that there are so many great things that you can do to come out of that, and then how your perseverance and all the great things. So I really thank you for this today.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine. I appreciate it. Yeah, I would like to come back on post the book being released, and we'll catch up.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Angelina.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.